Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Gabriella. I'm an Exec Director with Automic Markets, and it's a pleasure to have Ganesh, Kumar, Bangah with me this afternoon. Welcome, Ganesh.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Good. So for people in the audience that might not be aware of Xamble, can you just give us a quick overview of the company?
Sure. So Xamble is an influencer marketing platform. We enable brands to reach out to our network of 20,000 influencers. So we have brands like McDonald's and KFC in Malaysia that actually use us to reach out to our influencers. So they basically pay us to get these influencers to say good things about them and to promote their products on social media sites such as Facebook, TikTok and Instagram.
Okay. And the interesting thing about your company, you're actually solving some of the key issues in the influencer marketing industry. Can you just run us through what some of those hurdles are and how you're solving them?
Sure. I think before we touch on that, I think it's important to talk about the importance of the influencer marketing industry, right?
Yeah.
Today, actually, a majority of the world's population actually spends more than 10% of their time on social media. We spend an average 2 hours a day or more than 2 hours a day on social media, right? However, the cost of advertising on social media is actually getting more expensive. The cost of advertising on sites like TikTok or Instagram has actually doubled in the last year and almost every year in the last couple of years, right? So the effectiveness of directly advertising on social media is actually becoming less, and so influencer marketing becomes a more effective way. What influencer marketing is basically using influencers or people with influencers or people with followers on social media as an indirect way to reach this audience, right?
Yeah.
And the challenges with that, of course, if you need to find the right influencer, and we're not talking just about the Paris Hiltons or the Kim Kardashians of the world. Those are the mega celebrities that maybe have more than a million followers, but those don't really have as much engagement as the nano or micro influencers with 1 to 100,000 followers. It's actually more effective to get 10 influencers that have 100,000 followers than one influencer that has 1 million followers, right, in terms of engagement. But to get this number, let's say you get 100 or 10 or 50 nano micro influencers is not easy. First of all, you need to find the right influencer. Second of all, you need to engage them. You have to figure out how to pay them. You have to figure out a way to trust them. Because, for example, if you get a nano influencer, do you pay them first or they pay you first, right? If you pay them first, what if they don't post what you've paid them to do? If they pay you first, if they post first, they'll be worried. What if you don't pay them, right? And that's where we come in. Our platform actually provides that trust where nano and micro influencers can engage brands very effectively over social media, solving all the challenges or the major challenges when it comes to influencer marketing.
Sure. So you're essentially you're connecting the influencers with the brands and the brands with the right influencers, but also you're overcoming that problem in influencer marketing where brands couldn't sort of attribute end sales by the consumer.
That's right.
And your technology helps that as well.
That's right. That's the other issue. The issue is attribution. So when somebody spends on influencer marketing, it's now very difficult to track the sales that is generated. Our technology enables tracking of that sales. And if we go back to, for example, the taxi industry before Uber, right? The influencer marketing industry today is just like the taxi industry was before Uber. You don't know how much to pay, what to pay, you don't know where to find the right right driver, which driver to choose. What we do is we solve all of that through our platforms. So essentially we are doing for the influencer industry what Uber has done for the taxi industry.
So on that note, maybe if we can just start talking a little bit about the new technologies that you've recently introduced and how they work.
Sure. So before we touch on that, if you allow me to engage influencers or to perform an influencer marketing campaign, there are actually 3 steps in performing an influencer marketing campaign. The first step really is discovering the influencer, selecting the right influencer. So our platform, which we have launched and which we're now rolling out as well, actually enables a brand to discover an influencer through a dashboard. So we have a database of 20,000 influencers. If you're looking for a 25-year-old influencer who's a mother in Kuala Lumpur, you can actually search for that through our dashboard. So it helps you discover the influencer. The second is it actually helps you execute that. So we have an app, just like Uber has an app, we have an app as well. It's called the Xamble Creator app. And this app actually enables influencers to actually then get the campaign, right? So if somebody searches for the influencer, he searches the right influencer, then the influencer actually gets that notification in their app. They can accept that, and then finally they also get paid through the app. Now, when the influencer posts a campaign, our brand dashboard actually then enables the brand to actually view the success of that campaign. So how much engagement has been generated. If, for example, they use one of our new technologies, the Xamble Social Wallet, they'll even be able to track the amount of sales that the amount of sales that's been generated from the followers of the influencer.
Okay, great. And can we talk a little bit about the competitive landscape? Like, is anyone else out there doing what you're doing?
Sure. So if I talked earlier about the three components of influencer marketing: discovery, execution, and monitoring, there are people doing one of each of these, but not we're the only ones that are doing all three. So we're a one-stop ecosystem or one-stop solution for brands, all the way from discovering the influencer right down to actually monitoring the success of the influencer marketing campaign.
So the company is quite unique in that point of view.
Yes.
And you just a little bit about the history of the company. Like you're fairly well established with a good range of clients. With a pretty good barrier to entry, isn't that right?
Yep. So the company itself actually has been around for quite some time. Our clients range from KFC to McDonald's to Unilever to P&G. So essentially all the FMCG brands, the large retail brands. We also work with all the large agencies, Group M, Dentsu. So a lot of them actually, or most of them use us for influencer marketing campaigns.
Okay, that's good.
Yep.
And turning to the market opportunity, Ganesh, you're focused on Southeast Asia.
Yep.
Can you just talk about sort of why that is and the growth potential in that market?
Sure. So a lot of people ask me that question, why Southeast Asia, right? Southeast Asia has a population of 600 million. If you add Malaysia, which is our home market, Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, and all together, it's a 600 million population. It's a young, growing demographic. And because of all of these macroeconomic factors, one of the fastest growing digital economies in the world today. Influencer marketing itself is also a very fast growing industry. Why is it fast growing? Essentially because of the key factors that I talked about earlier, right? And it's growing at roughly a 30% clip,
right?
Over the next couple of years. So essentially, we are operating one of the fastest growing digital industries within one of the fastest growing digital economies in the world. Yeah, and so I guess that's where the real opportunity is.
Yeah.
And we're solving the biggest issues with this industry, which is basically the attribution component and also this choosing and executing the right influencer.
Yeah. And you touched on this a little bit before, but perhaps if we can sort of talk about it in more detail, and that's your focus on the micro and nano influencers as opposed to celebrities like Kim Kardashian.
Yep.
So what's the rationale behind that?
Sure. So basically, statistics have shown, now if you have 1 to 10,000 followers, which is basically a nano influencer, if you have 1 to 10,000 followers on Facebook or Instagram, the engagement rates are 8%. If you have 10,000 to 100,000, your engagement rates are 8%.
Right.
Now, what is an engagement rate? Essentially, if you post it, the number of people that likes or comments is that. So 8%. So if you have 10,000 followers and you post something, tendency is 8% of that 800 people will like it. Right? Now, as you get to 1 million followers and above, that number actually drops. The engagement rate drops to 1.7%. So in other words, it's actually more effective for you to get 10, 100,000 influencers, 10 of 100,000 follower influencers rather than 1 million follower influencers.
Yeah.
And that's where our technology platform actually enables you to effectively reach out to this type of influencer.
Yeah. So greater engagement, and I think for people out there, those influencers are more authentic as well.
Yep. So I think greater engagement means greater success.
Yep.
And also greater sales, right? Which is what every brand wants.
Yeah,
yes. Which is why we've been operating in our home markets for like 13 years, and we've been doing it very effectively.
Yeah.
More than 78% of our clients are returning clients.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to turn to some recent news flow, so tech entrepreneur Georg Chimiel recently invested in Xamble, and he's just been appointed to the board as well. Can you take us through sort of those two developments and what it means for the company?
Sure. So, I've been in the tech industry for quite some time, and I've noted that there are not many Southeast Asian internet companies that have actually been successful on the Australian Stock Exchange. Two of the Southeast Asian internet tech companies that are successful is a company called iProperty and iCar. Some of you may have heard of these names actually. Georg was the CEO. Georg was actually the CFO of REA Group. He left REA Group to become CEO of iProperty, and he built iProperty and then sold it back to REA for $500 million. Right? Then he left and became chairman of iCar and built up iCar and actually sold it to Custom, a unicorn in Malaysia, for $200 million. Wow. So he's actually got a very established and successful and proven track record in building Southeast Asian internet companies in Australia, and actually then exiting those businesses.
Yeah, yeah.
So I had dinner with him a couple of months ago and told him, look, I've got this opportunity, and without me asking, he actually offered. He actually offered to actually come in on the board and also invest in the company as well. And I'm very happy and glad and also blessed to have him on the board and on our side in building this business.
Great, a good addition, and he invested $400,000 in the company, so that was good.
Yep.
I might just pause and see if there's any questions. Eric, are there any questions online?
Not at this stage, Gav.
Anyone from the audience?
Gav, I'll ask a question.
Sure.
Just curious, are there must be other peer or competitor type companies offering these services in the US, which would be a huge market, right? And then maybe even thinking about it here in Australia. Are there peer companies we can think about?
Sure. So there are a number of peer companies in every market, and I think you've got to think about it as two types of these companies. They're traditional agency type businesses and the platforms type businesses. When I acquired this business 3 years ago, it was actually an agency type business, and then we built the tech platforms on it to turn it into a platform business. Now there are quite a number of agency type businesses in Australia. I won't mention their names today, but there are quite a number of them. There are also quite a number in other Southeast Asian markets. We could potentially look, in fact, we actively look at engaging some of these companies either to roll out our platform or perform some M&A and kind of roll out our tech platform on these traditional agencies. Right? And therein lies the opportunity. Markets like Indonesia has population of 300 million, right? So there are agencies down there that we can buy and just roll out our platform on it, right? There are a number of agencies in Australia as well. Albeit Australia, pardon me to say, since there are quite a lot of Australians in the room, has a small population, right? And so because of that, Australia, of course, we are looking at the opportunity, but we really want to look at targeting the markets that have a large population and a huge growth opportunity at the same time. And potentially in the next couple of years, as we kind of penetrate and dominate these markets, we'll also look at opportunities in Australia. I hope that makes sense.
Oh, good. So turning to the growth strategy, I mean, you mentioned M&A. What are some other things that you're looking at doing?
Sure. So So in terms of growth, look, we're operating in a fast-growing industry. So organically, the industry will grow. What we've been looking at, as I mentioned earlier, is platforms so that we can scale or we can grow without really adding much manpower, right? And we have traditionally been focusing a lot on the big brands. So the brands I mentioned earlier, McDonald's, KFC, Unilever, P&G. And we've kind of have a good coverage of these large brands that have the large budgets.
Yeah.
Now what we're focusing on is the long tail, actually going to the SME. So getting smaller SMEs, getting e-commerce sites that use Shopify, for example, or integrating to the Shopifys of the world to enable their SME to engage our influencers on a self-serve basis, right? With that, we'll actually be able to actually grow without adding much manpower or without adding much expenses in the process. So I think that long tail of SMEs, there are 1 million SMEs just in Malaysia. Let's not even talk Indonesia, right? And all of them today will need influencer marketing. One of our clients just opened a retail outlet. Today, if you open a retail outlet in Malaysia, and I'm sure here as well, if you open a retail outlet in Malaysia, what is your most effective way of marketing your outlet? Is it putting an ad on Google? Is it putting an ad on in the newspaper? Or is it actually getting a few influencers to come to your store and post a few good comments for you, right? It's actually influencers.
Yeah.
Right? So therein lies the potential. It's actually taking influencer marketing with our technology and bring it to scale and bring it to that long tail of 1 million SMEs in Malaysia, right? And even more in places like Indonesia, right?
Yeah.
And to enable to do that, we need a platform which we have built and we continue to build as well. We need a platform that enables to do that at scale, right? Which we have done. So I guess that the rollout of the platform to SMEs, followed by basically geographical expansion. Indonesia, Philippines, the market we're looking at next year. And then if we can cover Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia, that's a population within these few markets of 400 million. And all the ad budgets then are centered in Singapore. Then kind of going to Singapore and setting up a small office. And actually getting the ad budgets in Singapore. And therein lies the opportunity.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. And what are some of the tailwinds in the industry that will help with this growth, Ganesh?
Sure. I think so one of the biggest tailwinds actually is the growth of TikTok in the region. A bit there is some geographical or political challenges with TikTok, but TikTok is one of the fastest growing social media sites, one of the fastest growing marketplaces in the region today. I'll share with you an example. There's actually a bookstore in Malaysia. So TikTok now in Southeast Asia actually has an inbuilt marketplace. So their marketplace is actually inbuilt in their social media site. It's the only social media site, large social media site today in the world that has an inbuilt marketplace. Facebook tried to do it in Instagram, but they didn't succeed. But TikTok is doing it really well. TikTok today in Malaysia, TikTok Shop, which is their marketplace in Malaysia today, is actually the second biggest marketplace in Malaysia. It's actually overtaken Lazada, which is actually owned by Alibaba today. Right? And how they done it is they actually use influencers.
So influencers go on TikTok and sell goods.
So I'll give you an example. There's a bookstore in Malaysia. This bookstore uses influencers. So they actually get an influencer to read a book on TikTok and say, wow, this book is really, really good. In fact, I'm crying. So the influencer really cries in front of the camera while selling on TikTok. This bookstore in 10 months of this year actually sold more books through TikTok than the bookstore sold in the last 10 years.
Wow. That's quite compelling then.
Yes. Right? So, and we are TikTok shop partner. We help TikTok, we help get influencers to TikTok. We are also a TikTok shop partner. We help brands like Dutch Lady and quite a number of other brands as well sell on TikTok.
Right.
Yeah, so those tailwinds have already been very mature in markets like China. and it's now really penetrating Southeast Asia.
Okay, good,
Yeah.
good. I might just pause again quickly, see if there's any additional questions. Stuart?
What's been the biggest challenge you've had as you've tried to scale the model?
Sure, I think, so just as a background, I actually acquired this business about 3 years ago. The largest challenge I had before we actually built the platform was scaling it without really adding human resource, right? Because historically, you actually need to hire more manpower to actually perform the services required to engage in the influencer. Today, with our app, that is resolved, right? So we can actually basically engage influencers in a very scalable manner through our app, right? Now the second issue is actually to get acceptance from the influencer to use technology, because influencers by nature are not an easy bunch to manage, right? And however we have been able to get them not only to download the app but to start using the app simply because we give them quite a lot of earnings in a year. So because we've been around for many years, we pay out $2 million to influencers in a year. So because of that, we do have some say in telling them what they should do better, right? And if they don't do it better, our platform will basically flag them and say, look, this influencer is not a good influencer to engage, and we'll just engage a different influencer.
Okay.
Right? Today, when we actually put a campaign brief on our platform, we get at least 50 influencers that actually apply to participate in that brief.
Right.
30 to 50. Generally, brands only need 10 influencers to 20 influencers per campaign. Right? So we have enough. So if you look at a platform, we always have the chicken and egg, right? The supply and demand side. In terms of supply of influencers, we have it because we've been in this industry for many years, and they all earn an income for us, so they'll download our app and they'll apply for campaigns. In terms of demand now, we have the large brands. Now it's actually growing to that 1 million of SMEs, which need this platform anyway, and that's where we're rolling out in the coming year.
Okay.
And then the next growth area is really going to Indonesia and Philippines.
Okay, okay. Ganesh,
I hope that answers your question.
Ganesh, we're running out of time already, so a couple of more questions before we finish. So where do you see Xamble in like 3 to 5 years' time?
So I would say we would cover, in the next 2 to 3 years, we would cover the Southeast Asian markets and hopefully Australia as well, right? And any brand that wants to come in this market will be using us to engage influencers, right? I would envision that 30% of every SME in these markets would use us for influencer marketing in our markets. And I would also envision that there will also be a room for doing cross-border commerce. So a brand in Philippines or brand in Malaysia, some of our brands in Malaysia will actually use our platform to then sell into Indonesia, right? And use our influencer database in Indonesia, right? To basically sell their products better. So the influencer industry itself is going to be the industry that actually enables cross-border commerce to really grow and proliferate. Is the Amazon of the future, right? And will be the platform that enables people to do it in a very easy and structured manner.
Cool. Excellent. All right, so lastly, Ganesh, what are 3 things that you'd like our attendees to take away from the session today?
Sure. I think the first thing is we are operating in a very fast-growing industry, in a very fast-growing economic region in the world. The second is we're already a market leader, and so we have the barrier of entries or the moats built around it. We have the brands, we have the influencers, which is the toughest to build. Now we already have that covered. And the third is our new technologies, right? Our new technologies, the Xamble Creator app, actually enables us to then scale and actually grow the business in a very scalable manner, right? Not only in our current markets, but also in new markets as well. So in summary, we're in the right industry with the right history and the right modes built and the right strategy to grow.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thanks so much for your time this afternoon, Ganesh. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.